1.2, subtracting real numbers. So basically what subtracting real numbers is just like we were working with adding numbers with different signs. That's what it is. This is one of the things that it is. Because before we did things like this here, where we had, let's say, for example, 30 plus the negative 42. But now, this same thing is written as 30 minus 42. Means the same thing. But you just won't see it like this anymore. But when you're solving your problems, you can always rewrite it to look like that. So if 30 minus 42 is the same as this up here, what are we really doing? Right, we're subtracting the numbers, and the same rule as we were working with before. Subtract the numbers and keep the sign in front of the larger number. So same thing that we were doing, it just looks different. So that means we would look at it like this here, 42 minus the 30 to give us what? So 12, and then we keep the sign. That was in front of the larger number. So the solution is negative 12. The sign in front of the larger number is negative here. That okay? Okay. Let. Mm-hmm.
For exam purposes,
Mm-hmm.
we have to know that this is all related to real numbers, and that if you give us a problem that says 30 minus 42 now, you're actually meaning.
Yes. Yes. Means the same thing. And if you see it like this, you can always rewrite it to look like that. Another way to think about this is going back to the bank account. if you have $30 in your bank account, it's a positive 30, right? So if you have $30 in your bank account and you go and you spend 42 with your ATM card, you're subtracting $42 from that 30. So that's another way to think about it. So now you're going to have a negative balance of $12. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's visually, it just,
Mm-hmm.
it plays that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, me too. I'm a little dyslexic too. You know, sometimes I have 351, I write 531.
Try to
Sure.
stress myself out when it feels unnecessary, but are we gonna be able to use our notes on like the post test and remind
Yeah,
us?
yeah. You'll have your notes available for that. Hmm.
So my taking notes is not in vain.
Hmm.
I said, so my taking notes is not in vain.
No, it's not.
Can't we also use the book too?
Yes, yes. So, okay. Well, how about we write it mathematically?
75.
The new way.
75 minus 1.
Okay, good, good. So, yeah, if you have $75 in your bank and you go and you spend $108 for groceries using your debit card, your bank balance, you know, if we think about it mathematically, the new way that we were talking about, it would be $75 minus 108. And again, that gives us what? Negative 33. Right. So again, if we look at it in terms of writing it out, you know, we will have the 108 minus the 75. And that will give us the 33. But we have to keep the sign that's in front of the larger number. So the larger number, 108, has a minus sign. So negative $33 in that case. would be the balance.
Just do 75 minus 40, it would give the answer, right?
Hmm.
If you were to just do 75 minus 40, you would get the answer, right?
Yes. Yes. But keep in mind for your test, for your test, you would want to show me, this part right here. So, in this case here, we've been working with numbers, different numbers, adding and subtracting with the same, with different signs. But if we're working with numbers that, let's say, we're subtracting, and that way we have 19 minus a negative 7. Because we have parentheses here, this double negative becomes a positive, right? Well, that's the rule. Whenever we have two negative, whenever we have two negatives that are directly on each other without another number in between them, it becomes a positive.
But, okay, on the other when it had the negative in front, and then the number, and it became a problem.
But we were working with absolute value then. You can't use this rule with absolute value. It's only when we have parentheses or other types of brackets that we can use this rule. But when it's dealing with absolute value, you have to take the absolute value first, and then whatever negative is in front of it will drop down with it. So that's the difference here. Is when because the parentheses doesn't really mean anything. The absolute value does mean something. The parentheses is only to hold it. It's not. We could write this the same way as 19 minus a negative 7. But generally we don't do it that way. We just hold it in parentheses so that you can see it. But the parentheses don't have any significance, other than to hold, that value. So a double negative becomes a positive, and we would rewrite this as 19 plus 7. So, and that gives us, 26 as our value. So that's the thing to remember. Double negative like that. Right. Right. That's the because we have to use that rule. Because of that rule. And we'll use coming up we'll look at order of operations is what we call it. And yeah. Mhm. Mhm.
Well, the way that they taught me a double negative was with the parentheses, it kind of looks like a nose that makes a face.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of ways to remember it, and keep in mind that there's nothing in between. You know, uh, uh, when we use that rule,
Kind of looks
or
like the addition sign though. Like the if you like make that like line longer, then it kind of looks like addition.
yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. You can think of it like what's your name?
Abby.
Abby. Like Abby just said. Um, if you have the double negative signs there and a parenthesis, it looks like a plus. Yeah. Okay. So
Do you just like to show others like what parentheses looks like and an absolute looks like?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So earlier when we were working with absolute value, the absolute value are the bars that look like that. So the absolute value are the bars, and we cannot use that rule with absolute value. With absolute value, we have to take the absolute value first, and then drop down what's on the outside of it. So with this, absolute value cannot you cannot use the absolute the double negative rule. So we have negative 7 over 18 minus a negative 1 over 9. Right away, we see a double negative right there. So we can rewrite this. So this becomes a plus 1 over 9. All right, what do we do from here? Okay. Um, what would the common denominator be? Right, so that means that we have to, right, the numerator and the denominator, multiply that by 2. So it becomes negative 7 over 18 plus 2 over 18. Keep in mind that this negative now gets associated with the top part of the fraction. So our result is what? Okay. All right. So in this problem, a rescue helicopter is 420 feet above sea level. The pilot located a submarine in trouble that is 225 feet below sea level. The pilot descends 325 feet to search for casualties. Now, how many feet is the helicopter from the submarine? So, well, let's okay, let's look at it. Let's say, that here, my drawing is not so great, but let's say that's our helicopter. Originally at 420 feet, originally, above sea level. And let's see, that's the sea right there. It says that the helicopter descends 200 and, so in other words, it went down 225. So from 420 it went down 225, and that's 325. He descended 325, and the submarine, that's our submarine. That is 325, 225, and since it's below, we'll put a negative in front of it. So if we look at where the pilot is right now, what will we have to do? So that will be the location of the pilot now. And what is that going to give us? So 195 above. All right. The submarine is 225 feet below sea level, and we want to know how many feet is the helicopter from the submarine at that point. So at this point, remember that this figure is now 195. Feet, 195 feet above. We want to know basically want to know the distance. So what would that calculation look like?
420 minus 325, 95.
Hmm?
420 minus 325 is 95.
Yeah. So say it again. How would we write it? How would we write it up?
95 minus 225.
But this is a negative 225. So minus 95 minus a negative 225 does become a plus. So that double negative does become a plus. All right. Let's give us what? And so 320 feet away. From the submarine. All right. So that's when we're thinking about uh, how the double negative becomes a positive. It's almost like we're thinking about the distance between the two, and since we're going down to get to the submarine, we'll be subtracting more feet, just like we were doing in this example up here. We subtract it when he went down, and then now since we're talking about below sea level, subtracting a negative 225, and again we can think of that by putting the parentheses around it if you want, but it means the same thing. And that double negative becomes a positive. All right. All right. Let's. Any questions on? All right. Let's take a 15-minute break.